Welcome to the Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11, taking a look at pitching for tonight's 14-game slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. 14 games, a little bit of weather concerns out there in the East Coast. I know the Yankees and Red Sox is the biggest concern right now. That one's pretty much looking like a no-go for pitchers. A lot of issues with that one. New York is the other spot. Baltimore should be getting some clearing out. So keep an eye on weather there. It's definitely going to be worse spots. I mean, you're probably not going to be actually taking pitching early in those games anyway, but just do note that moving forward. Lots of pitching options that go with tonight. Corey Kluber, Max Scherzer, Keuchel. This is a pretty good slate for pitching. And I think kind of narrowing down the top options, we have a pretty good wide range of pricing as well. So, break things down first. I mean, I think obviously Kluber and Max Scherzer come as, top end options of the night. They're the tier one guys. If I had to pick, I'd definitely be leaning Scherzer. Both are on the road. Scherzer is just in a better environment and a better matchup. Both are pretty much identical in terms of strikeout rate and everything else. So, a neck and neck race really between both those guys, I think, in terms of being the clear-cut number one tonight. But I'm going to lean on Scherzer heading on the road. As I said, both are taking on the Padres, a team that he struck out 13 Padres bats against back in May, was 1 out away from a complete game. Obviously, his price tag is extremely high on DraftKings. That's just what you're going to get out of this. Any major pitcher that pitches against the Padres, he's 14-1. Kluber's not really much of a discount. He's 13-4. FanDuel, though, I mean, Scherzer's cheaper than Kluber, basically at the same price. So, like I said, I mean, both those guys over a 35% strikeout rate this year. They don't walk guys. They induce a fair amount of soft contact, decent ground ball rate for Kluber as well. And both come in as heavy road favorites, as you'd expect. Like I said, they're two of the clear-cut options on tonight's slate, and there's kind of no real justifying the reason to fade them other than the price tag. So GPPs, you can definitely look other options. I mean, there's a couple other cheap guys that you can consider here. FanDuel, definitely one of those guys that's going to be the cash game play for me. You can go cheaper and kind of get some bats if you want to go that route. There's no real must play on this slate, so it's just kind of all about how you want to go a strategy, and obviously Kluber and Scherzer kind of hinder your ability to get bats. So two other guys that don't hinder your ability to get bats, Dallas Keuchel and Zach Godley. I really like both these guys a lot in all formats. Start here with Keuchel. A couple of subpar outings, off the DL, bounce back in the road start against Texas, which was, a positive sign. He's had double-digit swinging strike rate in 3 of his 4 starts since the DL trip. He's not a big strikeout guy, but Oakland obviously 24.7% strikeout rate against lefties this year. That's something that's notable. Once again, he doesn't walk a lot of guys, 64.5% ground ball rate. That's, really what you like to see out of a pitcher, especially in this ballpark against a team that does have some pop. But like I said, Keuchel, 22% strikeout rate. He's a huge home favorite. He's on the cheaper side. So if you want to get some bats and still get a decent floor arm in there, who actually does have a significant amount of strikeout upside going to be against this Oakland team that he's done well against this year. Like I said, he struck out 16 against Oakland in 2 starts. He's only allowed 200 runs in those 2 starts. This is an offense that really does struggle against lefties. He's a home favorite with just the rest of them, minus 206. Oakland right around a 3.5 run total. So I'm a big fan here. I love Keuchel. I love the discount that you get from others. So like I said, you can sit in this mid-range and use them in all formats. Zach Godley's the other one. Terrific SP2 tonight just because of his price tag on DraftKings. FanDuel, he's a cheap option if you want to load up on some bats in comparison to the other guys. Godley's another ground ball guy, 55% ground ball rate this year. He has the 3rd highest swing strike rate on the slate. That's right behind Kluber and Scherzer. 25.8% strikeout rate this season. Minnesota's a team pretty average. I mean, over the last 30 days, 18th in WOBA, 25th in ISO. Against right-handers, 22% strikeout rate this year. So Godley's got some strikeout upside. You look at Vegas. Vegas has this one actually kind of a high-scoring game. Arizona's only a minus 116 favorite. But you look at Minnesota, I mean, right around a 4.8 implied run total, which I feel like is a little bit high. But I like Godley here. He's had a couple of tough games just because he's faced some tougher opponents, but he's actually held his own. 19 DK points, 13 DK points, 24, over the span of Chicago and LA. Tougher opponents, but he's been consistent. He's a good cash game guy. He's a good GPP guy. So I like those options a lot. I think moving elsewhere, I mean, we have some other names that are up in those price ranges. You get basically, Rich Hill. I feel like he's a little bit too expensive for this matchup. I don't think he's a bad option. You can play him in GPPs, but Tigers are just a team I don't really like to pick on with lefties. They're first in WOBA, first in ISO, just an 18.4% strikeout rate. They got a lot of platoon bats. The two catchers, Matuk, those guys all hit lefties pretty well. Cabrera, Kinsler, Upton. So Hill just probably overpriced for the matchup here. I'm not going to really be looking to use him. It wouldn't be surprising to see him have a good outing, but I just won't be on that on a full slate. Carlos Martinez, he's another one here. Obviously, he's probably going to garner some ownership. He's on the road against Pittsburgh, a pretty friendly ballpark. Hasn't showed off a ton of upside against Pittsburgh this season. Has finally actually bounced back with 2 really solid games in a row, which was good to see. Once again, he's just a GPP guy for me. I prefer Keuchel, Godley, Kluber, Scherzer over him. But he should get overlooked on tonight's slate, so that is something that is appealing if you're playing the ownership angle. And you also got to look. I mean, Martinez does have some solid swing and miss stuff. 26% strikeout rate this year. The ground ball rate's been pretty strong as well, 51%. So definitely he's in that tier of kind of top end options. But on a slate that features a lot of other guys with strikeout upside and better matchups, that's kind of where I'm headed. So that's kind of how I view things in that top tier there. As far as cheap guys go, there's a lot of guys that I'm just going to be looking to stay away from. Obviously you got guys that are cheap in the Tampa-Seattle game, but I don't want any real piece of that. R.E. Dickey's put up some decent performances. I just don't like rostering him in DFS. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards maybe, a Luis Perdomo or a Matt Moore in those later games at 5K prices on DraftKings in terms of SP2s. It's not a bad option if you're going that way in tournaments. I'm not going to disagree with it. Once again, I think for me, I'm going to be spending up and trying to get a little bit of pitching in there. But if you are looking, I mean, you can play Scherzer with a cheaper option like a Perdomo or like a Matt Moore and still be able to get some bats. Because, I mean, we have a lot of options in this slate. I mean, we got Coors, we got Jordan Zimmerman facing the Dodgers. Some weak pitchers in Baltimore going tonight. I don't think going with those cheap options is a bad idea in tournaments. I mean, it's risky, but you're going to get some bats in. You still get a good floor with one of your number one SP1s, whether it's Kluber or Scherzer or anyone else. You got to hope you get that big upside and that, they can just get that 15 mark on DK and you'll be fine. So, like I said, I mean, it's all about lineup construction tonight. I think it's an interesting one. You can pay up and pay down at your bats. You can pay in that mid-range and go mid-range completely. You can go one expensive, one cheap. And then on FanDuel, obviously, you have the wide range of options because you look at Godley, I mean, he's not really that expensive on this slate. And he's a guy I'm probably going to be rostering pretty heavily over there for my lineups. I do want to stack some bats in because he's only 8,700. So that's going to be pretty much it. Oh, I did leave off the fact that James Shields is pitching in Texas. So that's another area where you want to get some offense in. So a lot of offense tonight, a lot of good pitching. Hopefully there's a decent enough of wide range options for you in terms of pricing for you to feel comfortable building a couple rosters with. So that's going to wrap it up. You can head over to DaveFantasyCafe.com to get great tools and content.